We're a creative species. This is what I talk to people about all the time. We are a creative species. We create. Most people don't create because they're afraid. Between them and the things they want to create is this line of fear. In Hinduism they call it the sea of nescience, the battlefield. What I've learned to do in my own life was spent the first 30 years of my life afraid, depressed, creating nothing but a normal factory job, and then went through a very bad depression and thought I'm tired of living under the dominion of fear. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to confront everything I'm afraid of. That's what this book is here. Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People. I basically drew a pyramid on a piece of paper and I wrote down all the things I was afraid of. The bottom level was the smallest fear, the top level was the worst fear. And I systematically confronted each fear one at a time. This was to enable me to be free from fear, to get desensitized into adrenaline. So at the bottom end, I just had a fear of spiders. Might not seem like much, but to me it was debilitating. If there was a spider in the room, I wouldn't go to bed. At the top end, there was a fear of violent confrontation. So I climbed my pyramid of fears, thinking, once I've confronted all my fears, I'll be fearless, and I'll be able to live in the world, and I'll be able to create in the world, I'll be able to become a writer. So I climbed this pyramid of fears, I built a strong will, I got desensitisation to adrenaline, and eventually came face to face with my fear of violence. I became a nightclub doorman, which was, watch my back, where's it gone? Yeah, which is what this is about. This is about me becoming a doorman to overcome my fear of violence. It might not seem like a lot, but 4 of my friends were murdered during the period that I did this job. 2 were assassinated and 2 were killed in bar fights. 4 of my friends that were at the doors. So it was a very real threat. Coventry was polled as the most violent city in Europe for size and population, and I was in the middle of it. I was between 28 and 35. I was thin, I was receding. Everybody in Coventry wanted to fight with me. So I got a lot of exposure to violent confrontation. The big thing I learned about the door was that everyone was afraid. It wasn't just me. The thing that kept me in the closet at home, the thing that kept me from creating, was the fact that I thought I was the only person that was afraid. As it turns out, everyone was afraid. It's just that these guys had learned to manage it, had learned to do something with it. I mean, they were proper titans. We were living it, we were working in a hugely violent environment. It was nothing to see a guy go through 7 fights in one night, and hundreds of fights throughout a career. Some of them going through 600 and 700 fights. I was personally in probably, thousands and thousands of violent situations. I learned the futility of violence, but I also learned how to get sovereignty over myself. I learned to captain my fear. I learned to captain my sensual body. And that's really what was running me ragged and stopping me from creating. When I got the courage to stand and face violence, writing a book didn't feel as though it was such a big task. So I was working in a factory at the time, sweeping floors. I was, I think the date on here is 1989. So I started to write about my experiences on a nightclub door. And it was really interesting because people said, who's interested in talking about or reading about a Coventry bouncer? But it wasn't really about a Coventry bouncer, it was about a man that wanted to access his kingdom. Because in front of him and his kingdom was this sea of nescience, this line of fear. So this was about a conflicted man, this was about a man that was divided against himself. So I got some notepads, and I got a pen, and I sat in the factory toilet. I've still got the red ring round my arse to prove it. And I wrote my first book. That's it. The good thing about looking at this, I'm going to get you to all feel it in a minute, is when you feel this, you see the genesis of something. It might not seem like the genesis of a lot, but it's actually the genesis of a lot of things. It's the genesis of about 50 new realities. Because my reality was a factory worker, drove a push bike, scared to learn to drive, and was destined to be a factory worker all my life, but I wanted to see more. So this broke me out of that reality, and I created a new reality as a writer. So that, at the time I wrote that, my reality was so small, I didn't even know anyone that owned a typewriter. I didn't even know how to get it typed up. It took me 2 years to get it typed. Once I got it typed, I had to learn how the publishing industry works. So I started to send it out to publishers. And there's a lot of fear involved with that, a massive amount of fear, because of the fear of rejection. And because everyone was saying, who do you think you are to write a book? Who am I to write a book? I'm this working class kid. So there was a massive amount of fear. But because I had people trying to kill me, sending the book off wasn't quite so difficult. So I sent the book off. I ended up getting it published, that's the very first version of What's My Back. And again, it seems like a small genesis, but it eventually went on to become a £2 million film. That's based on this book, which is great because my wife always says that's what £2 million looks like. This has been downloaded 4 million times on Netflix. It had a West End premiere. It had a Paris premiere. All my posters for this film were all around Paris, and I was going around, doing promotions all around Paris. It was a great experience. But for me to make that film, I had to expand myself to believe that I was worth at least £2 million. Because up until that point, I thought I was worth £50 a night as a nightclub doorman. But because I broke through that and written this book and got this book published, all of that disappeared. I suddenly realised that anything was possible, not just for me, anything was possible for anybody. I have no doubt about that. And we've got a friend with us today who's climbed Everest, who goes across the North Pole with slippers and a shopping trolley. We've got an amazing man with us who is also proof that anything is possible. But we have to cross the Sea of Nescience. We have to cross that line of fear, because that will always be there. But fear is just bad conditioning. That's just small core beliefs. So my whole life has been about expanding core beliefs. I'm married to the girl of my dreams because I know I can be. I'm doing the job I want to do because I know I can. Most people are living in the wrong house, married to the wrong person, driving the wrong car, doing the wrong job, living the wrong reality in the wrong body. They're doing that because their core beliefs say that's all you're worth. That's not true. I know that's not true. So I'm trying to encourage people to do what I've done, is to go out and test that, lean into the sharp edges, be a shadow hunter, as Rumi said, go out into the night, hunt down your shadows. And you'll find that you don't need to be violent, you don't need to be ignorant, you don't need to be racist or sexist, you don't need to believe in the recession. There's only a recession in thinking, there's only a recession in imagination. We can do anything we want to do if we're prepared to cross that line of fear. To cross that line of fear, it means, like Arjuna going into the battle at Guru, etc., we have to kill the influences of our old teachers, we have to kill the influences of our parents, we have to kill the core conditioning of our old friends and teachers, and we have to go out and experience and experiment for ourselves and believe that anything's possible, because it is. So out of this book, written in a factory toilet, there's this £2 million film, there's this book that's there's about 100,000 versions of this floating around the world at the moment as we speak, and there's this selection of 40 books here that are in 21 languages. We've just gone into Arabic. This isn't me bragging, this is just saying to me this came from a factory toilet. This was my first manifestation of my own thoughts into something real. That was my second manifestation. Later on it became an audio, which was featured on Radio 1. It became this stage play, which was about, cost about £100,000 to put this stage play on. We created a stage play. This is another stage play that travelled around the country. This is the feature film we talked about. This film here was qualified for the Oscars. That film is just a few lines in this book. That film is just a few lines in this book. All of it, the genesis of all of it is here. People said to me, who wants to hear about a Coventry bouncer? It's not about a Coventry bouncer. It's about a man that knows he's got a kingdom and he wants to access that kingdom. Between him and that kingdom is a line of fear, the sea of nescience, the sea of ignorance. I want to cross that. The best way to cross it is to connect to my own source, to connect to my own divinity. And if I can do that, crossing that sea of nescience, as Krishna says, is as easy as stepping over the hoof print of a calf. So I continually connect to my essence every single day. I align every single day. And the only thing stopping me from actually changing the whole world is that I'm still working on my own fears. I'm still working on my own ignorance. I'm still working on dissolving some of my core beliefs. And then, of course, eventually, this book led me to the BAFTA. So suddenly I'm sitting next to Renée Zellweger and Harvey Weinstein And you know what was a very interesting thing about Rennie Zellweger, because she said she would go for tea. She didn't say, I don't think she meant me specifically. I did have my arm around her, because the Americans love the tea. But what I got from Harvey Weinstein and what I got from Rennie Zellweger and people like that was they were ordinary people like us. I was in the toilet before the BAFTA talking to LL Cool J, and he was trembling. And I said, "Why are you trembling?" He said, "I've got to give an award, I'm nervous." What he was really saying is, I don't know how I got here. I'm an ordinary guy that's come from a ghetto, and suddenly I'm presenting awards at one of the biggest theatres in the world, at BAFTAs. The great thing about that is that's a pure conversion of fear. My brother died from alcoholism, and I had to watch him buckle and bleed. I had to watch his life expire, and it left me with tremendous pain, scars, anger, fear, shame, a plethora of wounds. What I decided to do was write it into a film. It's in here. I wrote it into a film, so I'm an alchemist, I'm a shaman, so I transferred this dense energy, this leaden energy, into a film, and the film won a BAFTA. And the film went all around the world. I did a short film based on this book called Bouncer. A short film called Bouncer. And everyone said, who wants to watch a film about a bouncer? So it's not about a bouncer, it's about a conflicted man. It's about a man that wants to access his kingdom, but he's got fear between him and his kingdom. We made the film for £10,000, it's in here. And they said, who do you want to star in it? And I said, Ray Winston. And everyone started laughing. So we got Ray Winston, and the film went to 32 international festivals. So it went all around the world, literally went around the world. It went around the world because there's an essence in it. And the essence is that I'm afraid, but I'm not afraid to be afraid. I'm going to lean into that sharp edge, and I'm going to create from that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and live the life I want to live because I can. And I know there's fear in front of me, but that fear can be converted into something gold, into something beautiful. And when I win my Oscar, I will do exactly the same talk, and I'll tell it to 2 billion people. At the moment, there's 5 million versions of me in the world. I've duplicated myself 5 million times. I'm out in the world in 5 million different incarnations telling this story and saying to people, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but don't pretend it's not a choice. Success is not a lottery, it's a choice. But between you and success is fear. You've got to negotiate that. You've got to tread your toe into it. You've got to dip your toe into it. You've got to step into it. You've got to immerse yourself into it. You've got to marinate in it. You've got to marinate in that fear. And when you get close with it, you realise that fear has no existence. But it's three-dimensional to that point. To that very point when you immerse yourself into it, it's three-dimensional. It's like a monster. When the film I wrote for this was called Brown Paper Bag. And the film that was long-listed for the Oscars was Romans 12:20. The reason I wrote this, and this is another version, this is the stage play Fragile, this is about me being sexually abused when I was 12. My whole life I felt like I've had a Frankenstein chasing me, my whole life. And it's terrifying. And every time I run away, this Frankenstein gets bigger. When I finally got tired of running and sat down and looked at it and I wrote a play about it and a film about it, I realised it wasn't a Frankenstein, it wasn't a monster. It was a 12-year-old boy saying to me, acknowledge me, acknowledge me. So when I trace the story and I go back 40 years and I find the essence, I realise that my insecurity and my fear comes from the fact that somebody abused me when I was 12 and implicitly said to me, no one can be trusted. Now that's not true, but that's what he told me. So this whole catalogue of violence that I ended up involved in depression came from that one point. So I traced it back and I found the essence of it. And I realised that I wasn't really afraid of the world. I was told that the world was something to be afraid of, because this person said to me, no one can be trusted, not even the people you love, especially the people you love. Then I went to somebody who I loved and I said, I've been sexually abused, and they said, did you lead him on? And there's a great line in this play when the character's talking to his mother, and she's not there, but he's talking to her in his mind, and he's saying, what do you mean did I lead him on? I was 11. I was 11. I was 11. I was a boy. I was a fucking boy. I was 11. I was a boy. And I realised that was the essence of it. One person abused me. One person suggested I'd led this person on. That created a cognitive dissonance. It created a possession that projected me into a violent, depressed world. When I realised that the person who abused me was damaged, I could easily forgive him. He's already killed himself. He's not here anymore. And the person that suggested it was my own fault was terrified. She was afraid, and I could understand that, so it was easy to forgive. The moment I forgave them both, this fear was liberated, and my conscious net expanded, and suddenly I was given access to more people to talk to, more people to write for, more film opportunities, more chances to have tea and cake. But do you know how hard it was to look at this? It took me 40 years to look at it. Every shame, every anger, every fear, every rage, everything is in this book, especially the shame. There are oceans of shame in this book. Interestingly, when I put it into the book, it no longer felt like shame. I just was a person that felt abandoned. When I realised that intellectually that's not possible, it's not possible to be abandoned, only I could abandon me. And I felt like I couldn't trust anybody, but you don't need to trust anybody, I just need to trust me. I don't need to trust anybody else. I was able to quite easily let go of that. But putting this play on was more terrifying than having someone on the door pointing a gun at me and saying, we're going to shoot you. Or someone ringing me up at 4 in the morning saying, we're going to shoot your wife and children. Or someone trying to stick a glass in my neck. Or somebody's trying to jump on my head. Or a gang charging me in a nightclub and nearly killing me. Doing this, just having this play on in Coventry was harder than someone threatening to kill me. It was at some points my body became ill because it didn't want this to go on. And this voice said to me, if you've got cancer, everybody would understand why you didn't put this play on. Everybody would understand. So I was more afraid of a mortal disease and someone killing me than having this on as a play. Do you know why? Because I thought if I put this on a play and my mum sees it, my mum might be angry. That's how afraid I was. That was the core of this. I was afraid of my mum abandoning me. But when I realised, obviously, there's no fear there at all. That's just not something that's likely to happen. I put the play on. The play got 5-star reviews, and I expanded again. So each time I faced my fear, the nature of the fear is liberated, and the effulgence, the energy in the fear, is given to me, and I expand. It's exciting, isn't it? We were just saying when we walked around, I don't have to trust anybody. I just need to trust me. But for a long time I didn't trust me, because this person who abused me injected mistrust into me. So for years and years and years, even after he died, I physically abused myself, I sexually abused myself, I abused other people. I wasn't honest with myself. So every time I looked out into the world, I saw a whole world that couldn't be trusted. It wasn't them that couldn't be trusted, I couldn't trust myself. That was exciting for me, because I just thought, all I've got to do now is learn to trust myself. And to trust myself, I need to identify the parts of me that I don't trust, the parts of me that are not me, and just gradually dissolve them, face them, lean into them, dissolve them, and expand the part that was me. The part that wasn't me was insecure, was violent, was greedy, was envious, was jealous, was cynical, was gossipy. The part that was me just felt love. It felt like not just like an emotion, like a power. I felt this power. I recently bumped into somebody that gravely hurt me. And 10 years ago I would have been very angry and physical. And I met him and I put my hand on his chest and I said to him, why would you do that when you know I love you? And I completely dissolved him with love. I'm only interested in creating, I'm only interested in love, I'm only interested in being a great person and transforming my life and helping other people to transform their life. And if I can, have a bit of fun on the way and have some cake and meet nice people, why can't I do this every single day? Well, actually I do it every day. I'm either doing it here, or I'm doing it in London, I'm doing this somewhere every day. And when I'm not doing it, there are 5 million versions of me in the world, in different formats. The film particularly, I think there's been 4 million downloads of that on Netflix now. And this is basically the story of this, which is just about a man overcoming fear. So I'm duplicating myself. And that sounds like a lot, doesn't it? 5 million. But Paulo Coelho has 100 million versions of himself in the world at this moment, telling people that the kingdom's theirs. But the kingdom is not out there, the kingdom's in here. We have to access it from here. We have to be righteous. We have to live the right way. We have to be the right person. We don't have to trust anybody else. It's very easy to blame greedy bankers, fat politicians, fundamentalists. It's easy. There's a million people to point at, and people are doing it every single day, but it's just distraction. We don't need to worry about them. We just need to worry about trusting ourselves. We need to get rid of the fat banker in us, the greedy part. We need to get rid of the corrupt part that fiddles the taxes. We need to get rid of the fundamentalist part that is, feels violent at the least threat. We need to get rid of it into ourselves. In the Christian church, it's called vastation. It's about cleansing. It's about contracting all of the negative parts so we can expand. And then when we do that, there are no limitations. And if we want to, we can be at a film set, we can be making a film, we can be writing a book, we can be climbing Everest. We can go out and do the things we want to do. If I didn't think that was possible for everybody, I wouldn't ever write another book. I would never write another line. I know it's possible. I know that most people won't do it because they're too afraid, but I know it's possible. It's possible.